Hey, I'm Jim Turner, Release Boatworks. Welcome to the Stuart Boat Show edition of Beyond the Bulkhead. Coming to you live on Facebook right now, and record for posterity's sake. Or is that how you say it?
Yeah.
And I'm here with we always wonder, where's Herb? Well, we lassoed him and got him here. It's like herding cats sometimes. But so Herb, welcome to the
Thank you very much for having
boat
me
show.
here. I brought the passport from Miami and came over into the Stuart area. It's beautiful, lovely day here, and showing off the three beautiful boats that you have down here. So it's a great show.
Yeah, we're sitting here on Riff Raft, one of our 46-foot expresses. The owner was gracious enough to let us use his boat to put in the boat show to show people, which brings me to the next point. Normally, Herb and I are sitting here smoking a cigar, but we're not smoking cigars on the owner's boat. But we will be smoking one later. And what are we going to smoke?
We're smoking the Arturo Fuente. This is an anniversary, the Grand Reserva that they have. Dominican, beautiful cigar. Always, it's breakfast time here in Stuart, so it's
a perfect breakfast cigar.
Perfect.
Which cigar. we will light up when this episode's over. So
and we have a little Pampero, a little Venezuelan rum, to go into the segment about talking a little bit about Venezuela in the future. So,
well, we don't need to wait for that. We can crack that open
right now. We can do that now. Okay,
yeah.
Great. We can do that now. And speaking of Venezuela, a lot of obviously the whole fishing world has gone nuts with Venezuela. Do you want to go into the fishing segment and then go back to Venezuela, or you want to go right into it?
No, we can talk about it right now. Lots of crazy stuff going on in the fishing world right now.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah. Since the Maduro movement, and we've had a couple hundred phone calls about talking about going back to Venezuela and what to do there. And unfortunately, as much as I would love to be able to go to Venezuela this tomorrow, it's been 20 plus years since we were there.
Yeah.
And what we remember and what we used to do there is still going to be a good ways away. Relations with Venezuela are still not complete. They're working on that, but once the relations between the two countries are opened up again, I know that the American embassy just reopened in Caracas and is up and running there. So,
isn't Trump going to be president of Venezuela? Wasn't that the plan?
I thought it was Rubio.
No, Rubio's going to be president of Cuba.
Oh,
I think that's the plan.
Cuba. And so once we have that, we'll have the airline traffic coming over and things will begin. But infrastructure-wise,
I was going to ask. You still have a lot of contacts in Venezuela. So, what is the infrastructure like down there? I mean, is there still a marina?
Yeah, I mean, there is there's a yacht club in Caraballeda where we used to fish out of, and the marina is still there. Infrastructure-wise, they don't have anything set up necessarily for the boats that we deal with today. Yeah. 40 years ago, when we first started in Venezuela in the mid '80s, it was a different type of requirements.
Service for boats and stuff like that. Probably nothing.
Yeah, power and everything that we have, and considering that most of the boats, especially traveling boats in the Caribbean, are going to be in that 60, 70, and 80-foot range, there's really not a lot of places to put those boats.
Yeah.
So, but soon enough, things are in a positive, and everybody down there is very excited to, for us to come back down there. And I'll tell you, 98% of Venezuelans welcome Americans, want Americans to come back and do that. So whatever you might hear, that's generally most of Venezuelans love Americans and want them to come back. But what a fishery it is.
Let's back up a second, and why don't you tell us how do you know so much about Venezuela? And I know that this kind of how you started in this whole industry.
Yeah. I was just finishing up college when I went to Venezuela for the first time. I was actually working for Hal Chittum, for H.D. Chittum, at the time, and some Venezuelans came in there, and at the time the Bolivar which was almost parallel to the dollar, had gone from 4 to 40. So that devaluation made a lot of guys that had big boats consider, the charter options, because a lot of the different either world tour or different people had been. Venezuela always had a great fishery, and their teams, their light tackle teams, were spectacular, were competing in all the different tournaments. So we always knew that there was a great fishery there. So went in there and started working with a 41 Hatteras and a 45 Chris Craft called the Chappie 2 and Chappie 3, or Chappie 3, Chappie 4. And we slowly started, once I went in there and saw those, I came in there September of '87 and just fell in love with, the white marlin fishery is just spectacular. You're raising, 30, 40, 50 fish days at that time back then.
Yeah.
And
always, because everybody had the sonars going, right?
No sonars, no sea keepers, none of that stuff that we have today. But it was, it's always been, you go out, you never really know what you're going to get. But there's, marlin, blue marlin fishing there's also excellent, and the sail fishing, and we, quickly discovered the sword fishing.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of today, all these, the guys from Stanzik and so forth, that went down to Venezuela in the mid '80s, figured out the daytime sword fishing, and that stuff was brought over here to Florida.
And it's amazing that, like we talk about Venezuela, and it's like big yellowfin tuna. That was like a bycatch.
Big Allisons. Yeah, those fish on the bank are, probably, we've seen them as 220, 240 pounds, on the bank. So monster yellowfin. So with all that in there and the super Grand Slams, and it's one of those areas that Grand Slams were an everyday possibility, and super Grand Slams with the swordfish, and we even had a couple fantasy slams, which is all of them plus the spearfish. So, which is interesting by a single angler. But so we started that, and then quickly we. A few years later, we made up GG Charters, which ended up being, the first fishing lodge in Venezuela. We had a couple of topazes, a little 35 Bertram and a 41 Bertram, and had incredible success with that crew. Guys like Carlos Hernandez, who came in from, who worked for Choate on the Magic in Costa Rica, came over and taught all those guys how to fish, and or the modern stuff that we were doing in other locations with light tackle in Venezuela. And those guys today, many of those mates and washdown boys we had down there are captains today. Luis Lares, Speedy, and Carlos, and Juanga, and so forth. Everybody knows those guys fishing all over the world, and are incredible, fishermen today. And it was just a great fishery, and we did that till '99 when the mudslides came in there, and I think our last charter in Venezuela was probably somewhere about 2006, 2007, when it was just, it had become once Chavez came in there in the late '90s, it's just, it just destroyed the relationship between Venezuela and the U.S.
Yeah,
so.
And it was always on the do not fly list, whatever they call it, that the State Department puts out, right?
Well, it's just like everything in socialism and communism. We're not going to get into that, but there's not anywhere that this works, and obviously Venezuela's
a perfect example.
So that infrastructure, as far as hotels and everything we knew, is no longer there. But we have scouted out a couple different locations we think we can operate out of when we're ready. But it would be probably a year away.
So the Sheridan and the Malia Caribe,
those areas are no longer there. They've built that area there, that's the Macuto area, and where the yacht club is at, the Caravilleda Yacht Club, that has, transformed into something very different. So security, especially when you're coming in with, these today $2, $3, $4, $5 million boats. You want to have, you want to be somewhere safe, somewhere that, that you can fish out of and not worry about. And we're not there yet, but we will be soon. But we're not there yet. So, but that's a little bit of that with Venezuela. We're going to bring, I think in the next couple weeks we're going to have some of those guys that fished with us in Venezuela, captains, crews, and so forth. We'll bring together and we'll do something special, and we'll talk about the fishing itself, because that's what's amazing there. So.
Yeah, one one of my old captains, Jason Bryce, who ran the boat to 20 for me, and then he ran Macaira down at Casa Vieja for me. He was a mate in Venezuela for like what 3, 4, 5 years, something like that.
Yeah, and he ran Eric Anderson and Jason ran the Vintage. A guy named John Bone. They worked together with a guy named Paul Ivy, Captain Paul Ivy, who was world renowned from coming and fishing in the Caribbean and Mexico, and came to Venezuela and was spicy.
He's the Venezuelan. Well, he's not Venezuelan. He's American, but he's the photocopy of Ron Hamlin.
Yeah,
I think is the best way to describe it. So if you knew Ronnie, those are two peas in a pod, I would say.
Had the privilege of working with both of them for a number of years at the same time. Paul in Venezuela, Paul Ivy in Venezuela, and Ron Hamlin in Guatemala. So
Herb was a lot like Dr. Phil in that respect.
You had to be thick-skinned, I would say. You had to have
those two guys were a little rough around the edges. There was no sugarcoating anything.
But they were amazing people, amazing captains that shared all their information. Paul used to have a ledger, people to call all over the world to talk to him about, I don't think anybody at the time kept any more precise records on everything from temperature, lures that he was using, his catch results for the day, and different people would be going to Mexico. He used to run a boat called the Megabyte, and people would call him and just say, "Hey, Paul, I'm going to be in wherever, and I'm looking at doing this in this time of the year," and he would go in there and be able to tell you what lures to use, where to fish, and so forth. So it was an amazing encyclopedia of fishing. And the same thing with Ron. Ron did the same thing when he was in Guatemala in the Pacific, from fishing in the Galapagos and then fishing in Guatemala. Was almost the same thing, and he was just one of those guys that was great to fish with, fun to be with, and lots of good stories.
Well, and Tim Choate, when he started Fins and Feathers, well, I guess before that, when he was fishing out of Costa Rica, he was very meticulous with record keeping and actually he started the Billfish Foundation, right? Him and Win Rockefeller.
Well, we owe a lot of that to Tim, because he had the expectations of what he wanted. His, when people were chartering his boat or fishing on a boat that he owned, there was certain expectations that he had with the crew, with tackle, and we owe a lot to Tim on that because he set us on the right path as to how to fish and how to fish the right way. So
he really gave us from a charter boat's perspective. He gave us like the recipe to follow.
Yep. Which we do still today.
Yeah, we'd always have a captain and two mates, and one mate was the fisherman, the other mate was the social butterfly. Kept make sure your drink was filled and told jokes and did stories, and it's a great time to spend on a boat when you have that formula.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to fish Venezuela in '84 actually with my dad. I was actually still in college, so. But it was great, and speaking of that, we hired a cab driver for the week that we were there.
Yep.
And he had retired as the most successful jockey in the history of Venezuela, and he was living in Tampa.
Yeah.
But in 1 year, the Bolivar, they had 1,600% inflation.
Yeah.
In 1 year.
Yeah.
And he's like, I had to move back to Venezuela because my money was basically worthless in Tampa.
Yeah.
So it's super nice guy. Everybody we met there was always nice. I mean, great food. We'd catch a dorado or dolphin out on the boat and drop it off at a restaurant, go back to the hotel, shower, go back to the restaurant. They'd have it prepared like 4 different ways. And I always remember the flaming coffee drinks that they did for, we'd have like little, I guess they were like espresso cups, right?
Yeah, little cups. Yeah.
And maybe they put this rum.
They pour a little rum,
Pour a little rum into the coffee and light it on fire, and they'd pour it into your cup that was down here. They'd pour it from up here, and you just see like a flame going down, and it was very cool.
Yeah.
Very happy it did not end badly.
No, and it's a beautiful country. I mean, I got the opportunity to travel throughout Venezuela and from Merida in the Andes. You have every environment there. You got deserts, you have snow-capped mountains in the Andes, you have beautiful beaches in Margarita and Los Roques, and
because you set up peacock operations,
we
right?
had at one point in time we had peacock bass fishing down in Lake Guri, and we had the bone fishing and tarpon and permit fishing off of Los Roques. We had tarpon fishing in Rio Chico in the Lake of Tacarigua, which was great for small, if you wanted to catch, if there were anywhere between 5 pounds to 20-pound tarpon.
Yeah.
You know, I remember one of the first times that I was there fishing, and Mark Sosin was with me. He was filming one of his shows, but we pre-fished the day together.
Yeah.
And I just started picking up fly fishing, and so he turns, he goes, Herb, come on up here and take a shot. And tarpon just, comes up, does his gulp a little air and does his turn, and I'm casting, I'm right behind him. And then I see another one, and I cast right behind him again, and I cast right behind. And Mark Chosen turns around, and it's like, Herb, tarpon don't eat from their asshole. So, and it's like, but that.
Thanks for the encouragement, Mark. It's totally Mark.
It was totally Mark Sosin. Did plenty of shows with him later on, all over the place. But we had a fun time, and again, incredible country, beautiful. Beautiful people, great food, and just a great fishery. People are going to have once it gets up and going, there's going to be lots of opportunities to do.
I think we all think about the billfish, but the bone fishing is phenomenal. Los Roques, and peacock bass. I mean, that really, I feel like that put peacock bass fishing on the map.
Yep, started it all.
I mean, that operation had all like Ranger bass boats and everything. Right? That was like very
the guys
top shelf stuff.
Yeah, guys had. Everybody went down there. Roland Martin, Jimmy Houston, all those guys at some point in time did shows down there. Tarpon fishing is huge because pretty much all over the country you could find these fish. But in the Orinoco, which is where these big freighters come through, there's a bunch of these pilot stations that are there, and they're also covered with big tarpon. And I remember in the Delta area, there's talk of 150, 200 plus tarpon, basically, and that drove Billy Pate crazy, and we did a couple of trips down there chasing those fish. Got 100 plus 150 pound fish, but never got that 200. But there's big fish. They're there. And
what's that other fish? The
payara.
Payara.
Yeah, the payara, the saber tooth looking. They love to munch on a bunch of piranhas. That's their favorite thing. They'll come out, stun. They stung the piranha, and then come around and they have they can open their wide mouth completely and then consume take in the piranha.
That's what our buddy Juan and on likes to fish for those.
Yeah, they're fun. Fast moving water, fish. There's plenty of areas over there to catch big payara. So we did that.
So basically, it's paradise we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a spectacular location, I think, and it's easy to get around. So eventually, in the next few years, we'll be back to fishing a lot of Venezuela.
We were talking earlier about records. There was a record set a few weeks ago about the daily blue marlin catch, and we both agree that with today's modern techniques, if Venezuela does open again, we'll shatter every single record. Numbers record.
Yeah, most of these locations that you read about with all this blue marlin fishing that goes on in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico and those areas, they're fads that have been created through the years, and obviously they're bearing fruit today. But we can see some pretty spectacular stuff, and if we had a few fads in the bank as well in Venezuela. That we'd
well, and back then we didn't pull dredges.
No.
There was no Omni, there was no Seakeeper.
Oh yeah.
And the seas could get a little dicey there.
Yeah.
You were definitely fishing.
I can't wait to do the Seakeeper thing on the bank there with the whites. That'll be fun.
That will be exciting.
That'll be fun.
Well, I wonder what the first release boat is going to be to go to
55
Venezuela.
Or maybe even bigger.
I've already actually had two customers called me this past week. We need to build a 55 to put in Venezuela. I'm like, chill out, dude. It's gonna be we don't want to be the first to go to Venezuela.
Think big power. Fuel's never going to be a power. I mean a problem.
Well, but we don't know that.
Yeah. Well,
it should.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. But
we know that we know that it shouldn't be, but the reality is that I foresee that being one of the things that changes in Venezuela. It shouldn't, but I mean, what did we used to pay, like 6 cents or 8 cents a gallon,
pennies,
or something like that?
pennies for the gallon. Yeah, it was crazy.
The world's largest producer of oil.
Yep.
I mean, it's such a rich
Sitting
country.
on the biggest reserves in the world. So I'm sure that
and that was one of the, besides the great fishing, one of the attractions was it was cheap. I mean, I took my first trip to Venezuela because I think we did it through a company called Safari Caribe.
Yeah.
And they were running like a special, like 3 nights or 2 days of fishing, including airfare out of JFK, and it was like $495 a person.
It was.
We couldn't go out and fish the canyons in a 31 Bertram for that much.
Yeah.
So my dad and I were like, let's go.
Yeah.
And it was like
no question.
3.5 hour flight, I think, from JFK, direct flight.
Yeah.
The hardest part of that whole trip was getting to JFK.
Yeah. The Venezuelan carriers at the time always had an incredible first class. Even their economy class service was spectacular. They'd have meals and open bar and all that stuff. So Avenza, Viasa, where and then at some point in time Santa Barbara came in there and did that. But we're looking forward to it. Let's see what happens. But that'll be fun. So we're in February.
Yeah, we're here in February. What's we know Venezuela will be good right now to fish.
Yeah, it'd be great blue marlin fishing. Not yet, but stuff like we talk about the Caribbean right now. We got stuff in the Dominican Republic going off. Well, today, just to let you know, today is the first day, second day of the Rockstar tournament now going down in Capos. They had 115 boats fishing that tournament. Over 1,200 billfish were released yesterday. So congratulations to Ron and the guys at Pelagic that do that tournament down in Capos. They do an amazing job and saddling up.
They did such a good job at it that Marlin's moving a tournament down there as well, I think, right?
Yeah. There's a fair number of tournaments going on down there. So that's definitely a major hotspot right now.
So we have a boat down there. I don't know if they fished a Rockstar or not. I got a feeling they might be, but it's Let It Ride 3.
Yeah, they're in Los Sueños.
Are they in Los Sueños? I believe they are. And they're very happy with the. I think he talked to Scott last week. He said this boat is like a giant teaser. It just brings the fish up, which is what our friend Ronnie always used to say. The boat's your biggest teaser, or it should be.
That's it.
Because I know clients they get him. Can we change the teasers? Can you put something else out? Nothing's coming. And Ronnie would get, I wouldn't say pissed off, but it was pissed off. So if he wanted to change the teaser, he'd just tell the mates to change the teasers, and they would just change it from left side to right side.
They'd swap them. Swap them out, and that was like, there you go. We just changed the teasers for you. So that was fun. But stuff in Guatemala also going off. We about right now, February, the end of January and into February, always count on 30, 40, 50 fish days, and that I hate always putting the numbers out, but pretty good solid double digits every day, no matter what. And then when you have those 40, 50 fish days, be very happy that happened. But that everyday possibility in Guatemala right now, due to the fads that we've had, we have a few there that exist in Guatemala. We've had a great, blue marlin, almost year-round blue marlin fishing going on there now.
So, it's amazing how that's changed over. When I first went down there, I think we averaged getting one bite in 3 days of fishing. Yeah. And that was just a bite. Maybe we were going to catch them, maybe we weren't. Yeah. Now it's like
you definitely count on one or two fish a day, that you're seeing. So you got to make it count. But they're there, and some Dorados as well, and the guys when they make it outside, they've been seeing some good tuna fishing. So.
And in Guatemala, we're not. Nobody's got a sonar. Nobody's got an Omni, and we're not pulling dredges.
Yeah, and no seakeepers.
And no seakeepers.
Not that we need them. But.
No, it's like being tied to the dock.
Yeah.
But anyway, what else is? Where else should we be going in February?
Well, also in Isla Mujeres, and that's a great location also. We've been seeing some good numbers coming out of Mexico right now as well with the sail fishing. It's easy to go into and fly into Cancun and hang out there, and we have beautiful resort hotels and get some.
So are they fishing out of Isla, or are they fishing in
No, they
PA
fish out of
and
Isla, but you fly into Cancun.
But are the boats in Isla, or are the boats like in PA and they're fishing from there?
There's in Isla and in Puerto Ventura, which is a little further down south. Both locations are doing real well, and we'll start seeing some whites in there as well. So that's a good location to think about when, if you're thinking about doing a trip in the spring.
One of our
spring.
One of the guys who are building a boat for the Reaper, he was in February. He went to St. Lucia and stayed on. He didn't stay at a resort, and they stayed on a boat, his buddy's boat, and they caught. I think he said in 3 days of fishing, they caught 34 blues.
Yeah.
I didn't even know St. Lucia was a thing.
Yeah, they lately they've had some spectacular blue marlin fishing. Actually, some of the Instagram stuff has been on fire because there's like a Dorado. There's a video of a Dorado being swallowed by a big blue marlin that came out of St. Lucia. So that's been going around. But yes, those areas in the Caribbean always tend to have good blue marlin fishing this time of the year. The only thing that happens is it's not consistent. Yeah. So when you're planning a trip, if you're planning a trip to any of these locations in season, great, go out, fish a day or two or something like that. But when you're planning a fishing trip, but if your goal is to take the wife out and be in the Caribbean for a few days, that be in the Bahamas, that be in the Dominican Republic, that be in St. Lucia, Trinidad, wherever, there's places, we can always help and either booking or recommending people that are in the area to have a positive experience. But there's fish.
One of the reasons I ended up doing everything in Guatemala was, my friends would always ask me, like, oh, where should I go? I want to go fishing at this time, or where should I go? I'm like, well, how many guys are going? Typically it's 4 guys going. They're splitting the cost of a trip. And I say, well, do you want to go to a place where somebody's going to catch a nice fish, or do you want to go to a place where everybody's going to catch a lot of fish?
Sure.
And that's usually what's the answer. That's you don't want to spend a good chunk of money, which none of these places are cheap.
Not anymore.
Not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, not anymore.
So I guess if I'm sure you've done this metric where you break it down to the cost per bite, or cost per fish. Still nothing beats Guatemala, but we're both pretty certain that Venezuela will beat Guatemala.
Well, for the money, Guatemala is definitely, like I said, if you're planning a fishing trip and you want to go for numbers of fish, Guatemala is definitely the most consistent. Now, there's areas like Costa Rica and Panama and in Mexico that you can do a little bit, do some good fishing to excellent fishing, fish with some great crews, and still have, a location that you can entertain the family and, do either, tours up the volcanoes. You can do, if you're into that whole jungle stuff and you're into those canopy tours and going from treetop to treetop, you can do horseback riding, you can do ATV, there's everything you can think of in many of these locations. It all depends on what you want to do. I think a lot of times I recommend people when they're booking a trip, preferably everybody to book a trip with us, but when booking a trip is to always disclose everything that you're wanting to do out of this trip. Many times people book a trip and then later on want to add things to it, and then the location could have varied if we would have known that from the beginning. The other thing is always to never be shy about what experience level you're in. A lot of times if you're a first time traveling to places, first time bill fishing, you could be, and this is your first trip, let them know, let your agent know, let people know, so that they can pair you up. Most people know the boats that they're working with, and there's great boats for people with kids, there's great boats for people that are novice, there's great boats that are a little more for the more experienced guy, that pairing that up. And also what you want to do, some guys want to fly, ultralight, that kind of stuff.
I know, like when I started Casa Vieja, one of the things that I was adamant about was, all the boats, the captains and crews had to be great teachers. Because at the time, I have three daughters who are young. They were young at the time, and I'm like, okay, if you guys can work with my kids and teach them how to fish, then you can do that with any level of angler. So if you're a good angler and you want to get better, it's great. If you're a completely novice angler and you want to learn, a lot of places that we charter in the world, it's all like hook in hand. The mate hooks the fish and hands you the rod and you reel them in. You've done that a few times. It's it gets old fast.
Yeah. Well, and the good thing today is that we have kid tackle. We have made for them, so we can do that. So there you go.
Well, so that's we were talking a little earlier about where else is spicy in the world right now. We had some excitement in January in the Bahamas, which being Herb lives in Miami. I lived in Miami for 12 years, so Bahamas was, it's like we could go to the Bahamas for lunch and come back.
Right. Right. Real quick, because I know we're up against the time, but we had a sport fishing boat that apparently, supposedly, and a lot of this stuff is we still don't have all the details on, but the Bahamians took in and arrested the crew of a particular sport fishing boat for chartering. And many times we have, or illegally chartering, because they didn't have the proper permits and stuff. It went through a litany of stuff that the crew had not. Apparently they had guns on board that hadn't been declared. And when you're traveling around the Caribbean, it'd be the Bahamas or down to wherever the DR, Puerto Rico, and around Venezuela, and obviously I understand people want to have safety and they want to be able to protect themselves against anything that you might, encounter out there. But whenever you're going into any location, it's important to declare the guns. It be a handgun, shotgun, whatever you might have on board. A lot of times people think they'll never find it. It's a breeze or whatever. And we've experienced so many times where someone goes in, they go through the boat, and then they find a weapon. And now it's from a simple misdemeanor kind of, you didn't have your license for chartering to, now having a gun on board, which is going to be a little bit more difficult to just get your way out of. But they had that, and now the new thing is vaping, as you know, in many of these countries you need to make.
What do you mean, as I know?
Well, kids do it today. You know that kid. Yeah.
Yes, I don't vape.
I don't. Yeah, I don't
even know what the hell it is.
We don't vape. We do. This is our vape. So, but vaping, you got to be careful with that, because sometimes they might consider that having marijuana on board, and even as far as, the Bahamians even talked about having X number, too many rods on board. You can't have too many rods on board. Yeah. Who doesn't have too many rods on board? But the real problem is sometimes, we have owners that just because they come in and fish, just a few days a week or a few days a month, and they want to keep the crew busy and fishing, they like to do these little things on the side where they charter for a few days. And that is illegal in many locations. So you have to be very careful when going in there. And supposedly social media plays a big part of this. So Bahamians are watching out. AI is a big part of what happens today, where they're able to keep track. And then if they see that a boat is coming to the Bahamas and is looking to charter, and they don't do the proper paperwork to charter once they're there, obviously that's an infraction and could be a problem. So social media, be careful when you're posting things.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there on social media that like to post every fish they catch, where they're at.
Yeah.
I kind of grew up in a time when you told your friends where you're fishing, but you didn't tell everybody where the hot bite was.
Yeah.
Now everybody wants to be an internet star.
And Starlink does that today. Everybody. I can't tell you how much I love getting 3-4 phone calls a day from Mike when he's out there fishing. Thank you, Elon. And having Starlink is a big thing. So, so just be careful. When you're doing these things, when you're going in there, be smart. And do the right things. So you don't find yourself in a bind. So.
All right, well, that's, I guess we can wrap it up, or we're going to keep going. We got plenty more to talk about, but we'll get that on another segment. So that's Beyond the Bulkhead Stuart Boat Show edition. This will be dropped in February. Like I said, it's live right now on Facebook. But if you didn't catch it there, catch the replay on our YouTube channel. That's at Release Boatworks. And thanks for joining us. And we're going to go pour a little more rum.
We're going to fire this up now.
Fire up our cigar and tell more fishing stories. Hope you guys get to do the same.
Tide
See you
lines.
next time.